In this episode of the Military Mindset for Business podcast, super cool story of veteran enterprise, veteran innovation directly leading into capability within the defense industry. I'm talking to, of course, Daniel Stevens from Seitec, award-winning company, ex-RAAF, super clever guy, a technician and engineer who's built a really powerful capability to directly affect, defense ranges, the defense estate, and to solve a really simple problem. If a bomb lands on the ground, how do we find it? So, yeah, one of the best pods. Stick around and listen. We've got Dan from Seitec coming up. G'day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Military Mindset for Business podcast, the podcast for the veteran business community. I've got to admit, there are some businesses out there that I'm a little bit fanboy of that I've been watching for a little while, and, like a horse that's on the outside running through, like cheering them on. And today I've got Daniel Stevens from Seitec. Hey, Daniel.
Hey Pete, how are you?
Good, mate. Your business in particular is one of those businesses that I have been fanboying and watching from the side, and watching your journey through to where you are today. So I'm really excited to just learn about your career and talk about Seitec. But before we, get into all that detail, whereabouts did you grow up?
So I was born in South Australia. Spent probably the first 6 years of my life there, but then most of the rest of my life, my childhood was up in North Queensland actually. Like I spent quite a lot of time in a little place called Malanda, a little cow
Malanda.
town. Malanda, so on the Atherton Tablelands. It used to be,
Ah,
so before dairy farmers became dairy farmers, it was Malanda Milk. Um, and it was a yep, a cow milking town. So it was a great place to grow up because you just, jump on your BMX and ride down to a waterfall or go camping by the river. It's just, you
hey,
know,
classic Aussie upbringing. Now, I got to admit, I know most. Well, I won't say most places, but I've never heard of Malanda. But Atherton Tableland, a little bit of a bit of family heritage for me. A big training area in World War II for those going to New Guinea
yeah,
across. And I remember my grandfather, well, I don't remember, but I know my grandfather spent some time there after coming back from, Africa before they went to New Guinea with the AIF. Beautiful part of the world, mate.
it is. It's stunning, and like it's a good sort of safe place to grow up,
Yep.
and it's a safe place to kind of push barriers as well.
Yeah.
And it was a great place to go to school as well. So we had 400 people in the school, and we had about
Oh,
70
wow.
people in grade 12. But it meant that, like, I remember out of our school we had OPs. So I I can't remember what, like, ATAR or whatever it is that
Oh, yeah.
every other
Yep.
place in Australia has. OP1 was about as good as you could get. And out of our tiny little school, we had six OP1s, which was just phenomenal
The school's
because
punching above its
the,
weight.
oh, yeah, 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 absolutely. Because you kind of had this discipline that came from, I guess, farming
Yep.
families. But also you had a lot of teachers for very few students. So, and most people were just driven to do the work. I mean, we kind of played hard and partied pretty hard.
Yep.
But when we're at school, it's like lock in, do the work. And once you
Is
leave
that public
school, it's,
school?
yeah, public school. Yeah.
Public school, man. I'm really stoked to hear that. I went to a public school called Katoomba High School, and I reckon we had this thing when I went through high school called 15 and under. So that's if your score was 15 and under, they didn't humiliate you by giving you a score. They just said, "Hey, you're in that category."
Yeah.
And I don't want to rag on hometown Katoomba too much, but we had vast stacked percentages of people at the bottom end of the scale. So, man, it's really cool to hear that, public school has, that collective methodology of success.
Yeah, look, we both my wife and I are big public school fans. Like we send our kids to public school because at the end of the day, I don't know, my gut tells me that drive is generally intrinsic,
Mm.
and whatever school you go to, sure, some schools will give you opportunities that other schools won't, but a school can't make your kid a smart kid.
Yeah.
A school can't change, like they can give you discipline, those kind of things, but generally you're born with whatever's in here, and you
Mate,
will become what you
absolutely.
become, however it happens. And so I'm a big fan of public schools.
Mate, public school was best fun. We had a great time there. And you know what? Um, we are just all lucky in Australia that we've got, these access to education no matter where you get it like we do. So the pathways for you though, were you always inclined to military or did you join up straight away or what made you with that initial inclination for the Air Force?
Um, Look, I think at its core, it was a ticket out, like a ticket
Yep.
out of a little town, because I knew that whatever I did, it would not be in Malanda. Like my
Yeah.
career, wherever it went, could not be there. There wasn't the opportunities for the things I wanted to do. Plus, I really, really loved the idea of becoming an electrical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like there weren't universities that were really focused on that up there, and there wasn't really opportunities. But I also have a pretty deep military background in my family. So
Yep.
my old man served in Vietnam. His old man served in World
Mm.
War II. His old man served in World War One. So as far back as I know, I guess the men in the family have always been at war.
Military.
Um, yeah.
If I can ask, what did your old man do in Vietnam? Was he Army, Navy, Air Force?
So my old man was conscripted, so national service. He actually went over as a dental assistant
Oh, all right.
of all things. The strange thing is, I had a chat to him about it saying, "Oh, what did you do as a dental assistant over there?" I mean, I get what a dental assistant does, but
Mm.
he said, when you're over there, you don't have that many people. And what you did was whatever needed to be done. So
Mm.
on one hand, you might be doing some dental stuff. On the other side, you might be helping in the operational theatre doing some bits and pieces. But then you're also jumping on a truck and going and doing patrols. Um,
Soldier first.
yeah, it is a very soldier first mentality. And there was some pretty horrendous stuff he went through over there. Um, and he was a relatively open book as well. He would tell me pretty much everything that
Mm.
happened. And it was so I guess in one way that was really good. He wasn't really closed off. He was happy facing his demons, and he had some pretty big demons.
Mm.
And for him, uh, and yes, I'm an open book. There's nothing really that's off limits for me. But he had contemplated suicide multiple times because of
Yep.
things that had happened, and even like he had a lot of disdain towards DVA. Um, to the RSL. I mean, I know there's been a lot of animosity, at least back in the day, between the RSL and Vietnam vets. But
Yep.
even when he went through DVA, he was trying to get his gold card, and he spent 4 years trying to get it.
Mm.
And the whole time they were just trying to trip him up, going, "Well, that didn't happen. That didn't happen because that's illegal." And he goes, "Yeah, it was." And I'm not talking about doing war crime things. It's like going and mounting a 50 cal cannon to a truck and taking the machine gun off it because the US offered it. But you couldn't
Mm.
use that in that context. And it wasn't
Yeah.
legal to drive around with a 50 cal on the truck. So he's like, of course it was illegal. And no, we didn't record it.
It's
So,
like,
but this
what
stuff
do you mean?
happens all the time.
Yeah, like the tech. Didn't you put in an application for the technical regulatory framework to be changed to allow that 50 cal on the truck? And you know,
Yeah. It's like, no, the US just had this ancillary equipment. They went, hey, you guys want it? Chuck it on your truck. And so he
yeah,
went through 4 years of absolute pain, and he said he became quite depressed during that stage because
yep,
they effectively said, we don't believe you on this, this, and this. And he saw some people, some of his mates, go through the same process, and they did
yeah,
do the worst thing you could do in that situation, and they
yeah.
um, yeah, so he went through the ringer. And there's plenty of people that went through worse, but it was good to kind of have him as an open book as I was growing up learning about what actually happens out there. Um, and he was a big supporter of me joining, but he just said, just be cautious when you join. These are the things that are likely going
Mm.
to happen. Just be ready for it.
Mate, have you ever been to Vietnam?
No, I have not.
Oh,
I've done
I'm
the
a
Dakota track though.
what's it? Yeah, mate. I'm a real. I love travel and I love visiting. Australian historic places. I haven't done Kokoda yet. Plan to do it next year. But I was in Vietnam last year, and I was very lucky to get and spend a bit of time down at the Long Tan Cross and at Vung Tau on the beach there, where the Australian camp used to be. And if anyone knows the Only 19 song, well, we all know that song. I
Yeah,
did sink a few tinnies at the Grand Hotel, which is still there. But yeah, look, I love the place. Let's talk about RAAF. So you would have gone down and done ADFA and done your engineering there. Is that right?
so no, I took the long path to ADFA. So when I got the opportunity to join defence, um, I went down to Brisbane. So they flew me down from Cairns and went and sat the ADFA board, wanted to
Yep.
become an engineer. And when all was said and done, they said, "Oh, actually, we're sorry, but there's actually no positions left." And I went, "Well, hang on, what? How did we get to this point?" And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, sorry, there was just some issues with the data, and we didn't quite have it on hand, and there was some confusion about your file, and there are no electrical engineering positions." I'm like, "Awesome, what do I do now?" They said, "Well, you could join as an avionics tech, and you could go to ADFA later." And I just thought, "Okay, let's do it."
Jump in.
And
So is that jumping into the ranks?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So that's and I don't regret it for a second. Like what I did as what I learned, I guess, as a non-commissioned officer is absolutely essential to what we do now.
And I
Um,
sort of think about my little brother who was a carpenter and now he's a builder, but having those practical fundamental skills rather than just a university degree to conceptually know how things happen versus literally putting your hands on the tools and making things happen.
Absolutely. Like we would be out on the flight line and we'd get a what's called a mod or an STI, so a special technical instruction or a mod to the aircraft. And we'd go out there and we'd open up the engine cowl bay and we'd look in there and we'd say, how on earth are we going to do this? Like we'd look at the
Mm.
engineering diagrams and they're different to what we see in the engine bay. We go, oh, we can't route these cables through there because there's this big
There's
thing blocking the
something in the
way.
way. Yeah.
And so we would go back to the SPO or go back to the engineers and we say, what are you guys doing? Like can't we can't execute this STI. And then we'd find out that they'd never set foot on the flight line. They never looked at the jet. And what they weren't aware of is there was some documented and some undocumented work that had gone over that had happened over the 30 odd years of the F-111. And they kind of wrote their instructions from the comfort of their office. And they
Yep.
just delivered it to us and we're sitting there going, this can't be done. It's physically impossible. So then I guess when I eventually did go to ADFA, 12 years after all of that work, working on F-111s and Super Hornets and stuff, I was able to see it from the other side. And so now I'm like, okay, now I'm the engineer. What is
Yeah.
important for me to understand as an engineer from the user's perspective? What's the information I need to get? And so I guess when it comes to product development now, fast forward all the way to where we are in Seitec, the critical thing is we need to talk to the users at every level, all the
Yeah.
time, because if you don't build it for them, then you're building it for no one. Or you're building it for yourself and you're not the one buying it. So
Interesting.
it's that's kind of what it's changed the design philosophy of how we do what we do because it's extremely user centric.
Mate, I've got to ask all Raffis that so you played with the grand old lady, the Aardvark F-111s. As me growing up as I just turned 50, so I'm getting on a bit. But me growing up, the old dump and burns were just a classic trademark of anything to do with the RAF and that jet in particular. Did you ever get a ride in either of the airframes?
That's a sore point. No, I did not. I didn't get a ride in any of the jets that I worked on. So when I left F-111s and went to Super Hornets,
Yep.
uh, I was meant to get a ride, and I was told, "Hey, there's all these other people who are actually posting away from Queensland. They won't get this opportunity, but you'll be here, so we'll get you on a
Next
seat
one, mate.
early
Next
next year."
one.
Yeah. Then what happened was the warrant officer at the time changed.
Yeah.
And when I rang back and said, "Hey, just wondering if we can follow up on this," and he said, "You're not in the squadron anymore. You're not getting a ride." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's 8
Come on,
years
mate.
of really hard work, and it's just about who." So that was a bit of a sore point. And then a similar thing, oh, not a similar thing, on Super Hornets. Um, I was meant to get a ride before I posted to 278 Squadron where we do the training. And that was all ready to go. And about 2 weeks prior to my PAX ride, we had this OBOGS issue. So OBOGS was the onboard oxygen generation system. And
Yep.
there was contamination that was occurring. And what was happening was some of the pilots were experiencing, I guess, mild, I don't know whether you'd call them blackouts, but just periods of time where they were flying and they'd come back and they're like, I can't quite recall this period of time. And they're like, okay, cool, no more PAX rides. They're done.
Ah,
Until we
mate,
figure out what's going on. And I think it took a couple of years for that to resolve. It was a really difficult problem to solve. And they were working with the US. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. That's all it was for that one.
mate, just roll the dice, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long did you spend in the Air Force?
20 years, just under 20 years.
Yeah, right. Man, I've got to admit, just again, just being the general average Joe that I am, I just always just fanboy jets altogether. Like I'm still one of those guys when I go to Avalon Air Show that just still, like when you go to Avalon and you've got the cool people who don't need to turn around and look at the jet going past, and they've almost sort of, I don't need to turn around. I see these all the time, but mate, I'm still the guy with my jaw dropped open, just going, man, how cool is that? So must have been a real pleasure just to hang out and be a part of this team.
Yeah. And look, that's the thing. It was the team. So the Jets at first was really cool. I remember the first
Yeah.
day I walked on the flight line and looked at the F-111 and went, this
How
thing's
good is this?
massive. This
Yeah.
is crazy. After several years, it got to a point where I went, they're noisy, they
Yeah.
smell, I'm over it. But the team was amazing. Like
Yeah.
it really was this family mentality. When the COs would say open door policy, it really was. It
Yep.
was a genuine open door policy. You could walk into the CO's office as an LAC and go, hey, sir, I've got this issue. He's like, you come in, sit down, let's have a chat.
Mm.
And I think from what I saw from other people operating in Air Force, we really did operate differently. Um,
Mm.
at times, not all the time, but at times it was kind of first name basis between NCOs and commissioned officers, just depends who was around. There was always that level of respect, obviously, between officers and NCOs, but there was also this real close bond that would occur, which meant people were more comfortable with saying, "Hey, I stuffed up,"
Yeah.
which is critical on aircraft because it could be something as simple as, oh, I did this and I broke something, and really that person might just go, oh, I can cover that up because it's not really that critical. But that one little failure could result in an aircraft going down. It could result in killing someone. You don't
Yeah.
know. When you have a look at aircraft investigations, crash investigations, a lot of it comes down to the simplest things.
Yep.
Um, and I guess promoting that idea in the flying squadrons of if you stuff up, come to us, tell us because we need to address it. We're not going to draw you over the coals if you're honest about it. And that was true. I did some dumb stuff here and there. And the worst I got was, hey, Dan, you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to stand up in front of the squadron, do a bit of a continuation training, and you're going to tell them what you did, why you
Mm.
shouldn't have done it, and how you can do it better and how the team can do it better and not do that thing. And you go and do that, and it's embarrassing at first, but afterwards they come up and go, hey, mate, don't worry. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. It's, so it was a really, really good environment to grow up in, I guess, as a young adult. Um, and it was fun. It was really fun.
Quick question about the structure of a warfighting fighter plane unit. In, for example, an infantry battalion, you might have, 70%, 80% warfighters and 20%, loggies supporting the battalion. Like how many planes is there? And like, if you only got like 50 pilots and then like 500 maintainers and logisticians, is it just stacked exactly the opposite way?
Um, I'm just trying to think. So generally a squadron would maybe have about 12 jets,
Yep.
generally. Across those 12 jets, you might have, no, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but you might have 80 maintainers.
Yep.
And that'll be across uh, aircraft work. So your black handers, the guys that fix the engines, the airframe, all of that stuff. And then you've got avionics, which are fixing all the electronics. That's what I was. We're glorified electricians.
Yeah.
And then you've got your armament techs, the guys that load the bombs and fix all the armament systems. Um, then you've got support. So, in a squadron where you've got 80 maintainers, there might be maybe 6 or 7 support, which were like Clark supplies or PCOs, PCS. You'd have an admino in there. And then aircrew wise, I don't know, maybe 20 to 25 aircrew.
Yep.
Look, I think that's probably about the proportion.
And when was it time for you to leave the squadron and go to ADFA and did you go to ADFA and do your training to get your
Yes.
degree? Yeah.
Yeah. I just got to a point where I needed to do more. Like I looked at it and went, look, I'm a corporal. It's a slow moving promotion system. Right or wrong, there was a little bit of performance punishment. So if you were a high performer, generally you were the person that was like, there was a team of us.
Yeah.
Generally, you were the ones that would go on rescues, which was, a jet's broken in the middle of the Pacific, or you would go on the lead. So, you're leading the jets across the Pacific to wherever you're going. And as soon as they land, you've kind of got the key team there to get those jets up and running again in case something goes wrong. But because of that, like we were all sort of dedicated to learning our art. And we didn't really do much outside of that. Like we didn't do a lot of, I guess, extracurricular activity within defense. And
Yep.
generally speaking, what was happening was the director of personnel was usually promoting people that were doing other things. But what we found generally was the people that would get promoted, they weren't all bad operators at all. They were like generally good operators, but they weren't the best people that were getting promoted. They were people that were just doing some other stuff as well.
Yeah.
Every now and then you'd see some come through and you're like, how on earth did that person get promoted? Oh, because they ran the social club or because they
Yeah.
did this or because they did that. But as an operator, maybe they weren't great. And so that sort of built a bit of a divide in my brain because I'm watching these people around me going, I'm working my butt off to be the best technician I can absolutely be. And, there were a few of us where it's like the difference between us working on a jet and maybe, some of the less experienced people or whatever could be the difference between a jet getting up and running in 3 hours versus 3 days.
Yeah.
And at times that can be the difference. But it was never really recognized because if you were just really good at your job, no one cared.
You
But
don't
if you did
notice it
something,
when you're good at the job. You only notice when you're not good at your job.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it just got to a point where I went, I enjoy the work, but it's kind of stagnating for me. And I
Yep.
really want to do something with more impact. I see all these things. I see these really wonderful leaders around me. I see the effect that these people are having on the organization as a whole. I want to do more. And the only
Yep.
way I can do it is by getting a stripe on the shoulder.
Yep.
Um,
So
yeah.
after ADFA, you've got your degree now. Where do you go? Where do you re-enter the Air Force?
Surveillance and control SPO, S&C SPO.
Yep.
So that's a system program office for we would do things like the battle space, like air battle space management, um, the weapons ranges. That's where I went to. So a few other bits and pieces in there. That was in Willietown, and at first I was not excited about it, but as it turned out, it was critical I did that role because if I
Yeah.
did not do that role, I wouldn't be here in Seitec.
Oh man, and this is where I love the sliding doors moments of life that lead us to where we are. Like that moment when you rocked up at ADFA, board, and they're like, "Hey, sorry, mate, no jobs today." Oh, well, that leads now that one critical sliding door moment led me to go into the ranks and have that career, and then you end up in Town. You don't sort of see what's coming in the future. Obviously when we're in the present, but it's all the little jigsaw puzzle pieces that lead to to your future. Did you get to deploy with the RAAF?
No, no, I didn't. So, I mean, we affectionately called ACG Air Carnival Group because
Yeah.
that's where we deploy is to air shows. We did like I mean we were gone a lot. Like I remember there was 1 or 2 years in a row where I was away probably 6 or 7 months of the year, just back to
Yep.
back exercises. So it might be,
Yeah.
you're off to New Zealand, then you're off to Nellis Air Force Base in the States, and then you're off to Hawaii, and then you're off to Tyndall and so on and so forth. But no, never deployed to an operational space.
So when was your moment where you're like, okay, this rafting's been great, but it's time for me to start thinking about something else?
Um, well, initially when I was a techo, but
Yep.
that's where the opportunity for ADFA came up. But really, the exit from defense was to pursue this. So there was some really good opportunities for me in defense.
Yep.
But I had just so at S&C SPO, I'd come up with the concept of UXOTrackS
Mm-hmm.
to find UXO or find bombs at their point of impact. So we were losing bombs. I wouldn't say left, right, and center, but we were losing bombs. And it was costing a hell of a lot of money to recover them.
So
Um,
just to put that into layman's terms, F-18 or whatever it is drops a bomb, doesn't explode. You're like, well, we got to go find that thing now because we can't just leave it on the range.
exactly. Yeah. So
Yep.
we're like the Defence Force is obligated to maintain a clean range philosophy. So if we lose a bomb, it's you can't just write it off.
Yeah.
So we have to go out there and find it. And the thing is for a bomb to hit the ground at the target it's meant to hit and to go off, everything has to go right. It's like the opposite of the Swiss cheese model. So have you come across the Swiss cheese model?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it's exactly the opposite of that. All the holes have to line up for everything to go right. So when the pilot pickles the bomb off the jet, one, the target information they put in has to be correct.
Yep.
Two, when they pickle the bomb off, the carts have to fire and the bomb has to be released. The little hooks need to open, so it has to come off the aircraft in the right way. There's little lanyards that come off and sort of semi-arm the bomb. Then once the bomb is a certain distance away from the aircraft, the bomb will arm. Then the guidance system and everything has to come online. And so there's some bombs where, winglets and stuff will pop out after they're away from the aircraft. That has to deploy
Mm.
100% accurately. Then then the bomb has to fly the correct trajectory. And by the way, the aircraft has to be in the right flight envelope. So the aircraft has to be at the right altitude, the right airspeed in order for all this to go right.
While it's
Then when the
doing
bomb,
800 kilometers an hour.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When that bomb hits the ground, um, the fuse is going to experience thousands of Gs, but that fuse has to work. That's the last part of the last piece of the puzzle, sorry. If that doesn't go off, it doesn't matter whether everything else worked. The bomb won't explode because
Yep.
bombs are pretty damn stable.
Yep.
The fuse is what needs to kick it off. So that bomb will hit the ground, and then it's kind of like water to a bomb. You have, a 500 pound or maybe a 2,000 pound bomb, and the tip of it is, like a centimeter wide, and it just punches into the ground like it's water, and it can disappear 15 meters underground. And
A
now you've got
volatile 15 meters.
yeah, exactly. So now you've got this issue sitting there going a literal ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And now you've got these EOD techs, which, I mean, bless them, mate. They are like what they're doing is a hard job, bloody dangerous job. And sometimes they'll sit there. I mean, there's photos that you can find where they've excavated huge areas and they're sitting there poking a pole down through a hole looking for the bomb. And then you get a backhoe and they're like digging and digging and digging and then going again, hoping they don't accidentally hit it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's no dull before you dig here in terms of where this thing actually is.
exactly. And that happens only when you know where the bomb is. If you
Yeah.
don't know where the bomb is, that's where the really dangerous scenarios occur because if the guidance system fails or the flight envelope's not correct or whatever, you can have a bomb that hits the ground and skips off the ground like a
Yeah.
stone off water, and it could sail, another kilometer off target. You can have a bomb that, if it doesn't deploy right, let's say you don't deploy a bomb as high drag or low drag. Say you select a bomb to be a high drag bomb, right? And that's where these fins pop out and it kind of slows right down and then comes down. And
Yep.
drops well below the aircraft. If that doesn't work properly, well, now you've got this low drag bomb, which might end up landing 3 or 4 Ks away from the intended
Yeah.
target. No one's fault. It's just that you've had a failure of the system.
Yeah.
When that happens, generally everyone's around sitting there scratching their head going, where do we
Where
even
is
start?
this thing?
And that's where costs can climb up in the millions. And so that's where, so I invented a system while I was in S&C SPO to solve that problem. And then it just got to a point where, like, I went to Jericho. So I posted to Jericho, developed that system, and then it just got to a point where we tried to push it out to industry. It didn't work, or they wanted me to come with them, like,
Yep.
I guess post into industry and help them. But I guess director of personnel had their own ideas, rightly so, about where my career needed to go, and it didn't match up with that pathway. And so then Air Force suggested, what if you spun out? Like, we can support that. But there's no golden handshake. Like, all the risk is on your shoulders.
Yeah.
We can help you get out, but once you are out, all we can do is keep an open line of communication to you, but that's it. And I just thought, you got one crack at this life.
Yeah. This is
Um,
so there was a safety net to say, look, it's a suspension of your career. You can come back if you want, but you really need to explore this thing and scratch the itch.
yeah, yeah. And I just thought, I can deliver way more capability to defense as an individual out there if I can pull off this system and I can build a company and we can build it and deliver it back to defense, I can deliver way more capability than I ever could as a bum on the seat
Yeah.
in
This
defense.
is, this is a massive multiplier. And so one of the things, I guess, as a bit of a simpleton, a guy who, so I was a farmer who joined the army and then started a couple of businesses, but I don't even understand how you come up with it. So well, let me go back. There is this classic business matrix here of I see a problem and then I solve it, and that's the fundamental principle of a lot of great businesses. But how long did it take you from the technical acumen, the technical ability to build this thing into reality? Because I have no idea how that even works.
Yeah. So the concept came about in 2018. So it was about mid to late 2018 when I
Yep.
thought, and it actually came out of the fact that I was kind of bored in my role. I was doing it, but to be honest, like, that role, I don't think it really required a full-time uniformed person to do that role.
Yep.
So it was generally taking me maybe 2 or 3 hours a day to get the job done. And then I was finding more and more things to do to improve processes and that. But I had a chat to my CEO and I just said, hey, do you mind if I spend some time at work just teaching myself some other things and keeping this, like, scratching the engineering itch?
Mm.
Um, so look, that was 2018 and I was just looking at this problem, trying to solve it. But I took a very systems engineering approach to it. So I did not solutionize. I thought, let's define the problem. Let's come up with requirements that do not say you need to have a video system or an acoustic system or a fiber optic system. It's, what are the requirements that defense needs to solve this problem? And then started looking at different solutions and then sort of ranking them against each other and going, well, how does fiber optic distributed acoustic sensing work? When you lay fiber optic down in the ground, what are the things that are good? What are the things that are bad? How hard will it be to install? How hard will it be to maintain? What about cameras? What about radar? And so that's what I do. And eventually got to a point where I looked at seismic sensors and went, this is the thing I know least about.
Mm.
But if you can localize an earthquake, and we also have systems that can localize nuclear tests globally.
Yeah.
Well, if we can localize a nuclear test around the world, then surely we can localize bombs in a confined area.
And this is cool. I love this stuff. And just the ideation of, or the iteration of the problem solving, like putting the problem or solving the effect of that problem first and not being blinkered by pathways,
Yeah.
but just test and adjust and ideate until ultimately, like, was it almost like a light bulb moment where you're like, oh man, I'm onto something?
it was I don't know, it was kind of took a little bit to get to that point. But with Jericho's support, so I mean, I posted, and this is kind of definitely not normal.
Yeah.
With the support of my CO, Wing Commander Nick Gray at the time, I went sat down in his office and I said, "Hey, sir, like, look, I'm going to be really blunt with you, but there are days I come in here and I feel like prying my eyeballs out with a rusty spoon." I
Yeah.
just said, I feel like a caged rat. I've got this idea. I think I can make it happen. But in order for that to happen, Jericho is supporting me, but they have said they will not poach me out of the unit. You need to support me in leaving,
Yep.
because I need to run it full time. And he said to me, I wanted to be a design engineer when I first came out as an engineer and like into defense. And he said, I never got that opportunity. There is no way I'm going to stand in front of you with this opportunity because it is so
Yeah.
rare.
Brilliant.
And
What
so
was the
he just
boss's name again?
Nick Gray.
Yeah. Just shout out.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So at that point, he said, "Look, you can do it, but you're going to work for me. You're going to help
Mm.
me, and you're going to help the SPO with doing some stuff, which was contracting out my position and a few other areas within that SPO. And I helped work with the contracting team and did a whole bunch of numerical analysis of, anyway, all boring stuff. Um, but yeah, he supported me, and then I posted to Canberra. I arrived in Canberra halfway through 2019. I rock up to Russell as a flying officer. I'm like, so what do I do? And they're all looking at me. And Scott Nelson, the wing commander, looks at me and says, "Mate, wing commanders at Russell get the coffee. We don't even know what to do with a flying officer. What are you doing
Yeah.
here?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Look, we don't really have a desk for you, but if you can find somewhere to work in Canberra and just pretty much check in with us once a month."
Perfect.
And yeah, and they were like, "Here's your 200 grand budget, go for it."
So what's
And
that
so
like? Is that like 03 or 04? Excuse my ignorance of ranks.
I,
Is
it's
that
the
captain in
like
army?
a flying officer is the equivalent of a lieutenant.
Lieutenant. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So now you're in this position where you're basically given the creative liberties and the headspace to really start exploring and really start playing in this space.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
It was
brilliant to be empowered that. Like, a lot of people, a lot of people have negative experiences with the chain of commanders support and what military does to empower them, but this is brilliant.
Yeah, it was. I think that the lucky thing was all the right people were in the right place at the right time. I
Yeah.
had a huge amount of support. Like, starting at Nick Gray at the SPO, um, through to the director of Jericho at the time, who was Jerome Reed. Um, then that went into Lyle, like that transferred to Lyle Holt, which eventually went to Michael Burgess Orton. And he was absolutely instrumental in what happened.
Mm,
And all of them were big supporters. And
yeah.
uh, like, I guess probably the biggest thing there is that we found that every single barrier that most people see in front of them, they believe are put there by someone else. But the barriers that we see in our life, I firmly believe they're barriers we put on ourselves and we just blame it on other people.
Amen.
And I guess what I'm getting at is that everything we approached, it's like, "Oh, you can't do that because of blah." And it's like, "Oh, well, why do you say that? Have you actually done that before?" "Oh, well, no, I haven't." It's like, "Okay, well, I'm just going to give this a crack." And then we find out that it's actually a lot easier than we thought. And so there's all these barriers that are placed in front of us, but they're not real. And so that's what we did at Jericho. We just kept breaking down these barriers and doing things really fast. And the more you do it, the more you realize that those barriers don't exist. And that was,
Yeah.
I was able to spread my wings and do a whole lot more than I ever could. And I started to realize my potential. I'm like, hey, I could actually do something here.
Man, there's a beautiful book called The Alchemist. And I didn't read it until I didn't read it until about maybe 8 years ago or so. But it's a book that I've read, word by word to both of my boys, and I'm halfway through it with my 7-year-old at the moment. But it's just a story of a shepherd that goes and looks for his life purpose. And one of the lines that is repeated in the book is that when you pursue your life purpose, the universe actually conspires to help you. not to get in your way. And if you're focused, it's such a beautiful little book. But as you were talking like that, I was just like, the universe is really conspiring to help you fulfill your potential here.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree.
Yeah.
Like I think when you're on the right path, you kind of make your own luck. There's always things around you that will enable you that you have no control over.
Yeah.
Like if one person in that chain of events was not the right person, like
Yeah.
they were, one of the sticks in the mud, like, no, I'm not going to support you in doing that because it's not going to happen. Um, all I needed was one, come back to the Swiss cheese model, right?
Yeah. I was
One
thinking
of
Swiss
those,
cheese.
if they didn't align, could have killed this whole concept.
Yeah.
Um, but it just so happened that there just seemed to be a bit of a change mentality. And now that I'm on the other side, like I'm really positive about the way defense is moving. I know there's a lot of people out there that whinge about how slow they are and this, that, and the other, but I've seen the change over time.
Mm.
It's a big beast. You cannot move it that fast, but they're making the right moves to support things like this. You just have to accept that it's not going to happen overnight.
When you got to the point of stepping out of uniform, it comes with a significant level of risk because this isn't a business that creates revenue on the day that you get out. What did you do in terms of the bravery of taking that step? And because did you know how long it would be before a potential payday came, literally to pay the bills?
Oh, hell no. Hell no.
So how long did it take?
There was almost no plan. It was just like, right, we're just going to roll with it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, so September 2nd, 2021, got out of defense. And at that point, I was doing a little bit of reserve work because there was still a project that I was running in Jericho,
Mm-hmm.
um, completely independent. It was to do with like software and databases and stuff.
Yep.
So as a reservist, I did that, but I was trying to build the company as well. And when BO, Michael Burgess Orton, uh, before I left, he just said, "Look, mate, I'd be really happy for you to do reserve work, but this company is your number one priority. So if it gets to a point where you cannot maintain both of these jobs, company comes first." I went, okay, cool. So I did that reserve work, completed that project, and then worked with a company doing some. So there was a company that was kind of working with Jericho, and I just helped with managing this Accelerate program for a little bit. It wasn't very long. But then I just got to a point where I called up BO and I went, I can't do this. Like every night I'm working, all day I'm working. And he goes, cool, mate, cut it. I went, all right,
Oh,
cool.
and
But yeah, like I spent those first 4 months with just a little bit of trickle pay coming in from reserves. It was not enough to pay the bills because it was like 2 days a week, if that.
yeah,
So we just chewed through pretty much every bit of savings we had. And then I raised my first bit of money in January 2022, which allowed me to pay a salary, which was a bit lower than what my salary was in defense. And then 6 months later, I raised more money with Angels. So Sydney
yeah.
Angels, Brisbane Angels, and Melbourne Angels. And then still didn't sort of do anything with the salary. It's just like, just got to pay myself just enough to get by.
Keep the capital going. Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't, yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy on the family. We had a home, we had a mortgage to pay. It was struggle street for, probably almost 2 years or 2 years.
And I want to
And
come to the raising capital bit in 1 second, but one of the things I really want to advocate and support is, we've got this situation where the capability of defense into defense industry, and we've got the 12-month sabbatical, you can't leave a defense role and go work for defense industry. But I'm actually really passionate about, self-employment and enterprise and entrepreneurship as being a pathway from defense because you can stay in the reserves, you can still become, maintain a sense of capability, and it provides that tax-free income just to cover a few bases. When did you cross paths with a good mate of mine and yours, Adrian Waters?
yeah, that was January 2022.
Yep.
I
Was
did
he that
my
second round?
yeah. So he was so the first round wasn't really a round. It was a friends, fools, and family race.
Yep.
So that's just some people that were close to me um, pitched in some money, and it was just enough to keep me going,
Yep.
but not enough to keep me going for very long. So they created what was called, or what we did was a safe note. So
Yep.
yeah, they don't get any equity yet in the company. It's just here's some cash. When you do a full finance round, then we will get our equity and we'll get a bit of a discount on
Yeah.
that. So January 2022, I pitched to the Sydney Angels, and Adrian was kind of this, I guess you could say, a bit of a guardian angel and a bit of a buffer. So former airborne, uh, he was the only one who truly understood what I was trying to do. And he was the only
Yeah.
one who
So
understood what it was like to work with defense, to really
yeah.
work.
I was fortunate enough to serve with Adrian at 3RER, even though he was airborne and I was a crap hat pogue who never got to jump. But he's someone that, you'll probably listen to this later on, you know, just an intelligent guy, and
Yeah.
someone that, in that kind of environment must have been great to think, there's another, ex-military person here that just gets it.
Yeah, it was absolutely essential. Like without him, we wouldn't have got the money over the line. There's not a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Because he was able to talk to me and we could talk to each other at the same level, then he could go back to the investors and go, this is what Daniel's trying to do. Maybe you're not seeing that. Maybe you're not. And, the application for this in defense is bigger than you realize.
Yeah.
So I think I wouldn't say single-handedly, but he was absolutely essential to getting that money over the line. And now he's on the board. And the great thing is I mean, we have a bit of tit for tat of the Army versus Air Force,
Yeah.
but he brings an attitude which really challenges me in a good way on the board, because
Yeah.
I don't believe you should have a board that is a board of yes men. You need a board that's ready to challenge the CEO and say, hey, mate, that's a dumb idea. And here's why. Here's the evidence. You need to have a rethink about what you're doing.
I think one of the things that's always impressed me about Adrian as well is that he actually left defense and went on a pathway of, being an investor and understanding how, startups or IDs work, which is just a totally different model to, someone bootstrapping out, a lawn mowing business or something from home. So just having someone on side there, it's just, 1+1 = 3 when you get these kind of relationships. But I don't think he'll probably listen to this one day. So let's not say anything more nice about him.
No, because he won't be able to fit out the door with the size his head grows to.
But in terms of the how did it work with Angels? Because this is a civilian, networking group almost. How did you get in
Yeah.
touch with them in the first place?
Well, they actually just have a portal. Like you go to, I don't know, sydneyangels.com.au or whatever it is, and
Yep.
there's a portal there where you apply. So I applied there, then got an opportunity to pitch to them. But that whole process, like, it was scary. It was tough because you're trying to sell this idea that you believe so strongly in,
Mm.
and they're always going to question you, and you're like, why can't you see what I can see? And it becomes
Yeah.
very frustrating. But that period of time, I learned so much because those angels got on board with me and helped me learn about things like finance models and about how a pitch deck should be structured. And there was heaps that I learned in that 6 months, heaps.
Yeah.
And since bringing them on, like, the angels that supported me in that raise have been amazing all the way through. So once again, like, wouldn't change a thing there. That they've been unreal. Hugely important to the future of the company.
Particularly something that's so technical, in terms of the ability to translate that idea into the actual functional product that's going to deliver it. And just
Yeah.
one last word about Adrian. It's always hard to tell other people how good you are. Because particularly in Australia, tall poppy and that. But when you've got another champion telling, it's always better for someone else to tell others how good you are. And then when
Yeah.
you've got that champion in your corner, it's a lot easier for people to listen.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I guess just quickly on that, there's been, like, I'd say that Adrian and I have developed a really, like, a close friendship, and there's plenty of times that I'll call him and I'm like, mate, like I'm struggling with this and I just don't get this. Like the company's not moving fast enough and it's not doing this and I haven't executed on this and I'm beating myself up about it. He's like, mate, just stop. You're doing really well.
Yeah.
Like he's that yeah, he's that rock that you kind of lean on and you really need this. Like someone who can, yeah, call you out on your crap, but can also sit there and say, mate, this is the reality. You're doing well.
Yeah.
Keep going. Because yeah, the natural thing that we do, especially in military, is we just cut ourselves down. Um,
One of the things I would love to do one day is have, a veteran capital fund. And, someone like Adrian running that would be brilliant. So,
yeah,
one day if we can get a pool of coin together so that we can create, a literal fund, to support the enterprise and entrepreneurship of our own community, that would be like game changing. If we can start
absolutely.
looking at that, level of capital injection.
Yeah.
So, mate, how far off now are you from a product? Okay, we've got concept, we've got, when
Yeah.
you got something to sell.
So we've sold it. So
Brilliant.
it's taken 6 years of development, but arguably it is deep tech. It's a world first.
Yeah.
But as of May this year, we signed a contract with the SPO, Air Warfare SPO, and
So good.
3 weeks after that, we had the system installed. But to put this into context, how quick everything happened, we had an ASCA project that we won. So
Yep.
that was back in 2023. That was a 19-month project. Now, that ASCA project, we delivered on everything we said we would deliver on. That project came to completion on the 28th of May, but 8 days prior, we signed a contract with CASG to get the system into capability. So we did exactly what ASCA was setting out to do, and that
Yeah.
was develop a low TRL device or system into something that can go into capability. And it only took us from the moment that we engaged officially with the SPO and went, let's start talking about a contract and getting this thing into service. From concept to signature was 3 months. And this is a standard as DEFCON contract. And 3 weeks later, we had the system installed, ready to go.
No. Mate,
Um,
if I can ask, when were you capability ready and how long did it take you from being, yes, this system is built and works, before you then got that sale?
uh, that's it's a little bit of a tough one because the system arguably is still not what defense would typically buy. As in, it's not a TRL 8 or 9 bit of kit. It's
Yep.
TRL 7, arguably some might say lower, but I won't go into the complexities, but it almost doesn't really matter because the capability it provides, regardless of what TRL it is,
It's doing its job.
it will do its job. All you need is one bomb to go missing and it's paid itself off.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so look,
And
I
you'll
would
adapt
say,
and test and adjust and keep iterating this thing until it gets
yeah.
better and
So
better.
no, November last year, we did an experimental test where live aircraft dropped bombs on an area. One, talking about the Swiss cheese model, something did go wrong.
Mhm.
That bomb didn't land where it was meant to land. We located that bomb and we guided like the range crew out to that place the following day, and they found it within 5 minutes.
Ah,
And
but
this
what's
is
this? What are these moments like though? Are you just like, fuck yeah, like,
to,
is there just some kind of elation that comes up inside of you of like, man, I did it?
to be honest, there were, now I say tears, not tears to the point of where I'm sitting there sobbing,
Yeah.
but could not hold back the excitement because it was the
Oh,
culmination of like 6 years of work.
yeah.
It was the first time it had ever been tested in a real live environment. And, I talked with the team and we were going through how we're going to do it. Like, are we going to do the demonstration with a bit of a can demo? This is well before we did it. Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? And I just said, look, I trust the team has done a good job. It may go well, it may not. Let's just let the system do its thing and see what happens and just take that risk. And we were so glad we did because when it paid off and we found that bomb, it was absolute elation, I would say. It's just so much work, but Then the unfortunate thing is I'm built in a way where I go, that's awesome, but what's the next obstacle?
What's the
So
next? So what's
that
next?
was
I
that
love
was
it.
elation for like a half an hour. Oh no,
Yeah.
it was elation for a day or two. And I think I celebrated by getting a McFlurry from McDonald's. That's
What about
and
when
then it
what
just
about
was
when you
back
got
to
that first
business.
contract? What did you do to celebrate?
I think I just had a wine with the missus. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never. It's something which uh, it sucks for me. Like I never really celebrate things, or when I do, it's so short-lived because the brain just flicks over and goes, you know that this is one obstacle
Next.
in a
Next.
line of a million obstacles you need to overcome.
Yeah.
So don't let this go to your head. Move on. What's the next thing? Because time is against you. And so, and I've been told by, other people that say, hey, look, I know you're like that. You have to make sure you celebrate with your team because not everyone is like
Yeah.
that. And you really need to. And so I'm trying to sit there and celebrate it with the team. But my mind, as soon as we achieve something, it's what's next? What's
Yeah.
next?
Well, mate,
So
you gotta celebrate, even it's for the sake of your bride, mate, to be able to get her to celebrate the journey on it with you. Maybe delegate celebrations to one of your team or to your wife to be in charge of it.
yeah, and look, I think we had the team up, like we've got some remote workers, so we flew them up and had dinner and had some time together, like working together. And I think we went out, we go like skeet shooting or something. So
Yeah.
do something different here. So we did a couple of things with the team, but yeah, I guess my mind just went back to what do we have to do to get to the next goal.
Yeah. Well, for me, if anyone listening, I hope you can see why I've had, this fanboy approach of watching, you come along the journey and Seitec. Just run through a couple of the awards, and let's just talk about what happened down in Canberra a couple of weeks ago. A little bit of an interesting incident. Before we get there, though, what are some of the awards that you've won over the couple of years?
So we've won two awards. So we won was it Land
Land
Forces
Forces, yep.
Innovation Award. So uh, talking about always going on to the next thing, I went and did my pitch at Land Forces. So you get up there, you stand in front of everyone, you do your pitch. And as soon as that was done, I was out hustling, trying to, talk to as many people as I could. And then I had someone come over to me and they went, hey, mate, you needed back at the stage. And I said, I'm in the middle of something. Can you just leave it? And I was talking to someone from Air Force. And they went, dude, you just won. I went,
What?
do I have to come right now? And they're like, dude, you're coming right now. I'm like, oh God. So I went up there and sure enough, they were waiting around. I felt like a bit of a dick. But that award, and that was really great to get that recognition. And then yeah, we won the Defense Innovator Company of the Year at the Defense Industry Awards this year. And once again, like I put in the application and I thought, oh, I think that's a good application. But I was sitting there at the table. Someone said to me, oh, did you prepare an acceptance speech just in case? I'm like, no.
Yeah, whatever.
And then when they read out Seitec, I was like, I still can't quite remember what happened. I was just blown away. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
And the
that's
table's
us.
like, get up, go.
Get
And I
up. Oh, this is
remember
so
walking
good.
up and getting up to the stage and not realizing where I was meant to go. And I'm looking at the MC going, do I go over here? He's like, hurry up. And
Big
I
crowd and
was,
a significant crowd of defense industry. If I can just set the scene for the story from my perspective, but brilliant recognition and again, just amazing, success for doing the hard yards, doing the burn yards of the grind of it all before you got paid. To be recognized this on a national scale is brilliant. But I walked into the event, and as I sort of wandered down, I was a guest of Gateway by ICN, which was thank you for that. And I looked over to the right, and I thought someone had had a heart attack or something because I could hear this lady like moaning or groaning, and there was a crowd of people around. I was just like, oh shit, as with a military event, there's always people crowding around and plenty of people to help. And I was just like, shit, someone just die over there or something. But I sort of just kept going and sat at my table. Tell me what actually happened.
yeah. So I was sitting at the table and suddenly, we heard, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw something happen that didn't seem normal. I turned around and saw this chick standing there, and the entire table had been flipped over. And I saw her back, and my instant thought was someone has said something to piss her off. I wonder what just happened. But then
Yeah.
she turned around and she had this smile on her face. I'm like, that's odd. And
Was
she
this
came
your
straight around.
table?
This is the other table. This is
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is the table adjacent to us. But she turned around, had this smile on her face, and she came straight over to our table. And I'm sitting there going, what is going on here? And then she grabbed the table and it clicked. I went, oh crap, this is some bloody loony.
Yeah.
So as she grabbed her table, I sort of pushed her back and she kind of half fell back, and then she stood back up and she went to kind of lift the table again. And one of the other guys had held the table down and sort of pushed her again a little bit. But then one of the other guys from the table, who obviously knew what was going on, had sort of jumped, like grabbed her and jumped on her and pushed her to the ground. Then she started flailing her legs around. So I jumped on her legs. And then the other guy who was holding the table down, jumped on a midsection, and she went quiet for a bit. And I thought, well, there's no way she's getting out of this. You got three grown men
Yeah.
at it. But then once she realized she wasn't getting out of it, she just started screaming at the top of her
Yeah.
lungs, murderers, free Palestine. And I just thought, look, I get it. I I get your point of view.
Yeah.
And arguably, there are points of it I would agree with to some degree, but this is not the way. This is not
Yeah.
the way you're going to get anyone on your side. And so she was screaming and carrying on. And eventually, after ages, we had security come over and they grabbed her. And yeah, apparently she was charged with a few charges afterwards. But yeah, that was that was kind of what happened. It was a protester in
Right.
there, and I guess you have a few military people around, so it's like deal with the problem.
Yeah, look, yeah, credit to her for the courage of a commitment, but I agree with you in terms of probably didn't achieve the effect she was looking for. I hope she didn't ruin a few frocks on the night, because it was a great event. Um,
Yeah, it was. It
Mate,
was.
I just want to thank you for your time and jumping on. What's next for Seitec, and what's next for you?
Well, I guess the next thing is so we've got UXOTrackS into capability for a 12-month evaluation,
Yep.
but what we've found recently is that the same hardware with different software loaded, we can detect and track drones um,
Oh, mate,
with a sensor that sits under the ground.
next level.
So that's getting a lot of interest. But the same system's also doing footstep detection and vehicle detection. We just had it tested by Army at Talisman Sabre,
Yep.
and won't go into details, but it had some extremely positive outcomes. And it's still relatively low TRL. So the next thing, that system's called Nightingale. That's where our sort of focus is, as well as uh, evaluating UXOTrackS's performance ourselves, and building for scale. So
Yep.
over the next 8 or 9 months, we're making sure that our system can be scale manufactured. So injection molding, all that kind of stuff. I'm doing a fundraise at the moment, and so we need to build out the team. There's a whole heap that needs to happen, and I guess for me personally, it's really about getting me as far off the tools as possible, and I'm mostly there. And where I can work sort of uh, on the business, not in the business,
Yep.
and really start to look at the strategy and really guide this ship rather than sitting in there and driving it.
Yeah.
Um, that's kind of the big thing for me, and that's yeah, that's kind of the next big things for the company.
Well, man, I'm super excited, and as I always, I'm a single issue zealot on this stuff. I just love veteran enterprise. I just love veteran entrepreneurship, and the great stories are when we get someone from our community that understands defense, that can see a problem and actually provide a capability back to defense. In all honesty, I reckon 97, or I don't know, numbers, I'm making these up, but the vast majority of businesses are in no way suited in defense. We're butchers and bakers and candlestick makers, and we do everything else. But when we find a veteran who gets it, and well, you were serving at the time, and then it can actually build a capability apply, this is a whole pathway that I would love to see, defense explore, pathways into enterprise entrepreneurship to literally build capability and to still serving. Like I said, the
Yeah.
impact you're making now on this side is exponentially leveraged to whatever you would have been doing, being a staff officer back at Point Cook, doing a training job or something like that, delivering real time. So, mate, like I said, I'm fanboy of this stuff. I'm excited to watch your journey. I remember chatting to you when you mentioned to me that you made your first sale and seeing the literal years that had gone into waiting for that moment. And I just wish you all the best, mate. It's such a cool story.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's the good thing is it's still fun. It's still really, really exciting. There's some stuff that we're doing next week that is super, super exciting that we'll be able to talk about soon. I love it. Don't regret a second. And it's been an amazing opportunity, and it's freaking cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Hey, watch this space is all I'm going to say. So we'll put all the details about Seitec and how to connect with Dan through LinkedIn and other things in the show notes, mate. I really just appreciate your time, and I'll continue to fanboy and cheer you on from the sidelines.
Thanks so much, Pete.
Brilliant. Right, I'm going to call it a wrap there. Man, one of my favorite episodes that I've done. Again, there's great stories about veteran enterprise, but when we find the stories of veteran enterprise that go back into defense industry, they are things that we really collectively as a community need to celebrate and fully support. So thanks for listening to this episode of the pod. My name's Pete Liston, and out.